Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Art and Skill of Coaching, where I teach you how to coach. So, the clarity that you're waiting for to make a decision, it comes after you decide. And a lot of people end up prolonging decision making, not because they lack information, but because they are uncomfortable with the feelings that come with choosing. So maybe they stay in this energy of, I'll do it later, or they stay in contemplation of, I'm not sure what to do yet, or they stay in preparation where they're like, I just need more information. And they call that being quote unquote responsible. But more times than not, let's call it for what it is, they're being scared. And so today, what we're going to be talking about is how indecision is probably costing you more than you think and how to build the capacity to decide. This episode is for any human being, okay? So I'm not necessarily teaching a coaching skill today based in psychology or behavioral science, but this topic is going to still massively help anyone listening and coaches who are working with clients. So let's go ahead and dive in. People don't get stuck in their circumstances. They more so get stuck in their thoughts about them, okay? Now, let me say there is a caveat here. There are certain populations around the world that have circumstances or categorizations that do present more oppression than privilege. I'm not talking about those individuals that do have external circumstances that make it harder for them to make a decision or move forward with their life. I'm talking about your average person that has average circumstances. It's not that they're stuck in those circumstances, it's that they're stuck in the thoughts that they're having about them. Let me explain. So those thoughts might be, do I stay or do I go? Should I invest now or should I wait? Do I launch my business or do I just stay at my job? Yes or no, this or that. That dilemma is what gets them stuck. And they think the problem is a lack of information. And rarely that's the case. Sometimes, sure, but more times than not, that's rarely the case. It is the internal discomfort that they start to feel when making a decision and choosing a path forward starts to become real. Because once you choose, you eliminate other possibilities and you risk being wrong. You risk regret. You risk uncertainty. So instead of engaging in that risk, a lot of people will just tread water. They won't sink, they won't swim, but they will just tread water and stay in limbo as long as they possibly can. And what the brain ends up doing is thinking that that's being responsible, that's being safe. But that limbo, that endless treading of water drains so much energy, so much time, so much money, and will cost you opportunities. Because hear this, indecision is not neutral, y'all. Indecision is not free. Indecision is not easy. It is expensive and it is hard and it is draining. I personally have left hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table, missed out on amazing opportunities because I dragged my feet. I've lost clients, I've lost money, I've lost opportunities, I've lost windows for important things in my life, I've missed momentum. And it wasn't because I wasn't capable or I wasn't smart, it was because I stayed in contemplation too long. And here's what's wild. When you stay in indecision long enough, this is crazy, you end up building tolerance for the discomfort. Because tolerance will grow with time and your days will turn into weeks and your weeks will turn into months. And for some people, months will turn into years. And one day you'll wake up and you'll think when you're looking in the mirror, how did I stay here this long? How did I let it get this bad? And it's because you adapted to the discomfort instead of using your agency in the moment. And so the question becomes, if the discomfort is inevitable, why not just choose it now? Right? And speaking about choices, let me tell you something. It is so much better to make a decision when you have a choice versus waiting until you're in a crisis and there are no more options available to you. That is not an empowering or exciting place to be in. And it's so unfortunate that people will wait until it's a crisis and then be so upset that they don't have choices that actually serve them, are actually in alignment with their values, are actually going to move them forward or feel good or be easy. So I literally could get on a soapbox about this, but let's keep it moving because I like to keep these episodes short. So let's talk about why people think more information is going to help, but it really doesn't. And I think it's because a lot of people have this belief that if I just gather more information, I'll feel clearer. And when I feel clear, I'll feel confident and I'll make a decision and it's going to be the right decision and it's going to be amazing. And that is such a cute thought. And I wish that was the case, but let me tell you, it's not. Because often what they're waiting for is not this information that's going to magically create clarity for them. They're waiting for information that's confirming what they're already thinking, either what they're hoping for or what they're fearing. But this quote unquote confirming information comes after your decision, not before. And there's a term for it in psychology. We call it confirmation bias. And basically, it's when your brain will start to actively scan your environment, your circumstances, even your own memories for evidence that supports whatever you decide. Not supporting the quote unquote right decision, it supports whatever you decide. And this is documented in, like I said, cognitive psychology. Our brain will seek coherence and consistency. And so when you decide whether it's quote unquote right, wrong, or neutral, your brain will work with you. And when you don't decide, your brain will work with you and keep you in contemplation, confusion, and argument to keep you stuck. So again, clarity follows commitment. Clarity follows action. Clarity follows decision. And one more point I want to drill home today, in addition to clarity, is safety. A lot of people delay decisions because making a decision feels premature or unsafe. But here are some questions that I would encourage you to ask yourself. Is it physically unsafe to make this choice? Is it financially catastrophic? Is it objectively dangerous? Or is it just psychologically uncomfortable? And if it's psychologically uncomfortable, then the work here is, where can I grow? Where can I expand my risk tolerance? Where can I build courage or increase my capacity? And when I talk about capacity and tolerance are different. Tolerance is what you can endure, and capacity is what you can actually expand into. And leadership requires capacity. All great leaders have a massive capacity that they've grown over time and are decisive. In leadership research, whether you look at organizational psychology or executive leadership literature, decisiveness is consistent among it all. And it's consistently identified as a core leadership competency. Leaders don't wait to feel ready. They assess available data. I'm going to say that again. Available data, not hopes, not fears, not woulda, coulda, shoulda, maybe later. Available data, and they make a good enough decision now. A good enough decision now. And they adjust if they need to in the future. And if you're a coach listening to this episode, being decisive is not optional. You cannot coach clients into courage and into change if you are modeling hesitation. You can't push them out of preparation mode if you're living there. Your nervous system plays a role in the coaching relationship. It's going to set the tone, set the energy for the session. So it's very important for you to be in integrity with the work. Now, let me get off my soapbox and let's talk about how people typically try to solve for indecision. They'll research and gather more information. They'll ask their friends or try to seek validation from others. They'll wait for motivation. They'll wait for clarity. They'll wait for a crisis to force them into making a decision. But really what you want to have is options. So here's the shift, y'all. Instead of engaging in everything I just talked about, which is normal, don't judge yourself. But if you want to grow instead of stay stuck, here's the shift I want to offer you. Instead of waiting for the quote unquote right decision, just make a decision and then make that right. That means make a choice and then act in alignment with it. Stop reopening the debate or re-entering contemplation when doubt or difficulty inevitably shows up, and just pivot when new data justifies it, not when you get fearful. Indecision is not just the ability to choose, it's the inability to honor your choice once you've made it. And I'm going to say that for the people in the back. Indecision is not just getting stuck and not making a decision to move forward. It's making a decision and then reverting back into contemplation. Now, I feel like I've hammered this home about why becoming decisive is so important, but let's talk about the how. Here is a practical tool that I've been using as a therapist and coach for years, and it works, okay? I have so much evidence with clients and with myself, and I am going to share a personal story with you guys. So stay tuned for that. But clients get stuck in what I call dilemmas. And a dilemma is basically when there's only two options on the table, option A or option B, stay or go, now or later, yes or no. And when individuals don't like either, they'll bounce back between both of them endlessly because they don't want either of those options. And your job as a coach is not to force them to pick one, it's to help them create options where there is at least one more path forward. 3 is better, 5 is awesome, 10, you're going to actually get them somewhere, okay? Because when you push someone to generate 5 to 10 options that aren't on the table right now, you're going to activate what we call cognitive flexibility. You're going to move them into the thoughts that they've been thinking over and over again and got stuck in, and into a space of creativity, into a space of possibility. And those options are going to activate motivation and problem solving rather than their threat response. So here's some questions that can help you get them into this space. What you want to explore are things like, what are your values? What are your goals? What resources do you already have? What could you try temporarily? If you had unlimited resources, what would you go after? Who can help you? What can we decide right now and then revisit later if it doesn't work out? Is there a hybrid option that exists? If we could get crazy, what would we try? And can you see how when the brain opens up to these ideas, they're going to be able to access more and more options. And the more doors that the brain has, the more relaxed it's going to feel. And that indecision is going to shrink. So I told you I was going to share a personal story. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So a lot of people are shocked when they get to know me for real, for real. I'm actually naturally risk adverse. I'm a slow adopter. That's kind of my comfort zone. Not the best for entrepreneurship. I've learned that the hard way, but I'm committed to the work and I've gotten a lot better because as a business owner, that indecision, that identity of taking my time and waiting to see what happens has cost me so much time, money, and opportunities. It has become so expensive and I'm over it. So I've implemented something in my business that has been so helpful and I've actually started using it for my personal life as well. And I call it my CEO retreat. So once a year, I book 3 days away completely alone. And it's where I go work on my business, on my life versus in my business and in my life. And the entire objective for those 3 days is to make big decisions in a very short time frame. I'm forced to make a decision before I go. And this past CEO retreat, like I said, it was 3 days. I made 2 really big decisions on day one. One was personal, one was professional. And then I spent the next 2 days because they were so big and overwhelming and definitely got me into like a fear state, coaching myself to stand on business. What does that mean? To honor those decisions, to stop renegotiating, to come up with a plan and actions and objectives to implement that into my schedule immediately so that I can stay committed even when doubt and fear and regret show up. And the very first day that I came home, my energy felt so expansive. And within 7 days of getting home, I made more progress in my business and in my personal life than I had in the previous 3 months of contemplation. Because I had opened up my brain and stopped this energy leak that was leaving me fatigued and distracted and ended up being in a space of more clarity, more focus, more opportunity, and more direction. And what I can tell you is my business explodes every single time I come home in absolute decision because my life moves forward when I decide, not when I debate. That is so good. If y'all are taking notes, write that down. That should be a mantra for anybody who's feeling indecisive, okay? My life moves forward when I decide versus when I debate. Again, let's bring it home, y'all. Clarity is a byproduct of decision, okay? So just decide, make a good enough decision with the information available right now, and just start because momentum creates feedback. Feedback creates opportunities to refine, and refinement is what's going to create the result, okay? You don't need perfect or endless data. You just need sufficient data. You need courage, and you need the willingness to make a decision right now and adjust as you go, if it's even needed. Okay? Because we all know, let's tell on our brains for a second, that our brains like to run a little wild sometimes. They will catastrophize and come up with the worst case scenario that has little to no data that that's actually going to happen. And when we actually just start doing the thing, it's usually never as bad as we thought. And if it is, we just build the skill to get through it. And that becomes a win over time. So I always like to remind myself and my clients to fact check your brain. Because if there's going to be discomfort either way, choose the discomfort that builds you. It will change your life. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for certainty. Stop waiting for a crisis to happen that puts the pressure on you to actually make a decision. Make a decision when you still have choice and then make it the right one. I hope you found today's episode helpful. If so, please leave us a review, share this episode with someone who would really benefit from this message, and hit subscribe so that you never miss another training to help you master the art and skill of coaching.